Howdy, my name is Jeff Hoagland, and I am a full-time Marvel Snap content creator on Twitch and YouTube who has a focus on building lots of interesting decks and playing them every day on my live stream. Today, I have the pleasure of introducing to you Marvel Snap's latest card release in Arishem, who's going to be a phenomenal card for building lots of different decks around that we're going to highlight today. Arishem is Marvel Snap's first 7 energy card, a 7/7 who has the start of game effect. You gain +1 max energy, but you also shuffle 12 random cards into your deck. While Arishem's random card element obviously adds a good bit of variance to your game, that variance is a knife that cuts in both directions in Marvel Snap. Having cards at your disposal that your opponent doesn't know they need to be playing around is one of the absolute best ways to surprise your opponent and get those big 4 and 8 cube wins that you wouldn't otherwise be able to secure when your opponent knows exactly what you are up to. The additional max energy that Arishem provides not only is a powerful effect, but it also requires us to rethink about how we approach deck building with this card compared to anything else Marvel Snap has to offer. A key thing that Arishem does is allow us to play more expensive cards on curve, meaning playing something out almost every single turn over the course of the game. The average Marvel Snap deck often wants to have a certain number of 2, 3, and 4 energy cards, so it's making plays consistently and not falling behind on board. With Arishem, our 3s become 2s since we have 3 energy on the second turn, our 4s become 3s, etc. This means the other cards we're putting into our deck past Arishem can have a higher average energy cost while still expecting to play cards out from our hand consistently over those important early turns of the game. A heuristic to keep in mind when building your own Arishem decks at home that I'm going to execute in the deck list that I'm highlighting today is that I think 5 3 energy cards is a sweet spot for Arishem decks. This gives us a 73% chance to have one of these 5 cards to play out on the second turn of the game, letting us spend our energy efficiently in the early turns. In comparison, if we reduce the number of 3 energy cards we're playing down to 4, we only have a 63% chance for that to happen. Or if we increase it to 6, we only gain an additional 7 percentage points up to 80% for it to be likely, meaning that 5 is likely a place to be consistent while not having too many low-cost cards in our deck. Our first Arishem deck list looks to leverage some Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. who have synergy with cards that work well with Arishem. Specifically, Quinjet as well as Mockingbird are phenomenal, not only with the 12 cards that Arishem adds to your deck at random, but they also work well with the randomly generated cards from Agent Coulson as well as Nick Fury. Nick Fury, buffed in our most recent OTA, feels like he has a lot of potential inside of a shell like this. If you play Quinjet on turn 1 or turn 2, Nick Fury on turn 3, you can then play out not 1, not 2, but all 3 of the 6 energy cards that Nick Fury generates over the course of turns 4, 5, and 6, thanks to the combination of Quinjet's discount and the extra energy that Arishem provides. If you're missing some of the non-Arishem higher series cards in this deck list, Mockingbird is the only one I would describe as being absolutely necessary for the power level of what's going on here. Mobius, Red Guardian, and Baron Zemo could all be swapped out for other 3 energy cards that you can play out proactively on the second turn of the game and feel good about it. The best candidates for these would be cards like Spider-Man, Polaris, or other Series 5 cards like Gladiator or Nocturne that are just individually good Marvel Snap cards. My next deck idea is an Arishem Good Stuff deck list that's playing a number of individually powerful and often disruptive cards that we wouldn't be able to play together in any other shell because their energy cost would simply be too high for the deck to be competitive. Another thing that Arishem's extra energy allows us to do in this core is break the symmetry that Wave typically has when played out in the early turns of the game. Specifically, if we Wave on the second turn of the game, going into the third turn of the game, we will have 4 energy and our opponent won't, meaning we get to benefit from the cost reduction that Wave can provide, while our opponent will be stuck staring at 5 and 6 energy cards reduced to 4 that they'll only have 3 energy unable to put into play. Missing any of the higher series cards in this deck list, I'd recommend swapping them out for other cards that are individually powerful that have a similar energy cost to keep the curve the same. My next take on Arishem is perfect if you're someone who loves disrupting your opponents, and that is an Arishem tech card deck. Typically speaking, a deck like this doesn't end up being competitive in Marvel Snap because if all of your cards are reactive, you not only don't have things to do early in the game, but you often end up lacking raw stats to get on the board over the course of how things play out. In enter Arishem, who's not only providing us with more energy to play out multiple tech cards in those late turns, but the 12 random cards that he's putting into our deck will allow us to fill in our curve in the early game consistently, while also providing a mixture of stats to sprinkle in to supplement the disruption that our tech cards will be providing. Our next Arishem deck list idea is a full ramp shell that's playing a whopping 5/6 energy cards. In addition to Arishem providing us with that extra energy consistently, we also get to leverage Hope Summers as well as Wave to hopefully get to play out 3 or more of these massive bombs over the course of our average game. Because we're going to be putting some absolute beefcakes into play in the later turns, this deck is also leveraging Kyera as well as Armor as early game plays that can protect our stat sticks from opposing cards like Shang-Chi that would love to chop them down to size. This ramp list definitely has a little bit less flexibility in which higher series cards you need to have to try to get it to operate at maximum efficiency. I would go so far as to say all of the 6 energy cards are pretty critical to what's going on here, with perhaps one of them being swappable with a regular Hulk. Hope Summers at the lower end of the curve is also crucial in order to give us enough energy to consistently play these cards out ahead of time. Nocturne, Mobius, and Kyera are definitely the most replaceable of the bunch, with Cosmo being a fine candidate as another card that can protect our things, and then Nocturne and Mobius can be substituted out for Luke Cage or other individually powerful 3 energy cards that can help us trigger Hope early and just fill out our curve. Next up is a deck building thing I took note of, is that the glut of 3 energy cards Arishem really encourages us to play works well with another recent card release in Circe. Specifically, Circe's random upgrade ability feels most consistent when turning 3 drops into 4 drops and 4 drops into 5 drops, which makes her a natural inclusion in a deck that wants to be playing a lot of 3s. Circe is also a card that has phenomenal synergy with Mockingbird, and then we get to add Quinjet into the mix for Arishem and Agent Coulson, and we just have a lot of overlapping parts that are pretty reasonable Marvel Snap cards that also have small synergies with each other. As far as higher series cards go in this deck list, Circe as well as Mockingbird are definitely must-have. I wouldn't recommend playing this list without it, while Phastos and Jeff are just kind of individually good Marvel Snap cards that you could substitute out for other cards at similar energy costs to fill your curve early and in the mid-game. Finally, we close things out with a deck list I'm simply calling Big 30, featuring Arishem as well as the Mad Titan Thanos as the 2 cards in Marvel Snap so far that allow us to increase our starting deck size by 12 and 6 additional cards to get us 30 starting cards in our deck. Darkhawks everywhere are salivating, while the rest of your opponents are going to be left completely off guard, not knowing exactly which cards are going to be popping out of your deck or lining up in your draw at any given point. This is the deck list that I think is probably the least competitive of the group, but it's also possibly the most fun. We're mixing and matching deck ideas that I've highlighted in a number of others, from the Wave synergy to Mockingbird and Quinjet. There's a lot going on here to like, and I think this will definitely be something that I personally get a lot of joy from playing. I'd like to thank Second Dinner for inviting me to feature Arishem today on the main Marvel Snap YouTube channel, and if you like the idea of having a lot of fantastic deck lists to try out with a new Marvel Snap card release every single week, make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel at youtube.com/Hoaglandia where I do this for every single card each week after they come out. If you're looking to follow me in other places, I'm at Jeff Hoagland on Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube as well for live streaming, Marvel Snap, and all sorts of other fantastic gaming content. Thanks for hanging out all the way through the end of the video, and happy snapping.